Today on Lawyers with Game, we're talking about what it's like to work in Major League Baseball with Frankie Garland, Assistant General Counsel of the Philadelphia Phillies. Please join us. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Lawyers with Game. I'm your host, Darius Gambino. I am first and foremost a lifelong gamer. I've been playing video games since they were in the arcades. I've played on just about every system from the original Atari to the Super NES to now the PlayStation 5. I'm also an intellectual property attorney with 25 years of experience advising clients on issues related to patents, trademarks, and copyrights. I'm with the firm of Saul Ewing in Philadelphia, and you can find me on the PlayStation Network under gamertag EaglesFan71. Today, I am super excited to have on the program the Assistant General Counsel of the best baseball team in Major League Baseball, the Philadelphia Phillies, Frankie Garland. Welcome to the show.
Thanks very much. Excited to be here.
Absolutely. Happy to have you. If you like these videos, please consider liking and subscribing so we can continue making them. And please keep in mind that this series is intended to be a general and very broad discussion of legal issues. It is not intended as actual legal advice. If you need actual legal advice, please reach out to us and we'll be happy to help you. So today we're going to be talking with Frankie on what it's like to be an in-house counsel at a Major League Baseball team. Frankie, before we get into all that, I know you've had a pretty long history working with some different clubs and with Major League Baseball directly, including the Pirates right before the Phillies, and you've been with the Phillies now for about 4 years. Can you talk about your career path out of law school and some of the things you've done along the way and how you got to where you are?
Yeah, sure. And again, very, very happy to be here. Thanks so much for the invitation. I apologize for the state of my office here. I just moved into a new office and don't have anything hung on the walls yet, so apologies for that. But yeah, I guess my path to the Phillies started, in law school or maybe a little bit before law school. Always grew up as a huge baseball fan and wasn't even really sure I wanted to go to law school. But as I started thinking more seriously about that, gave thought to what would be an interesting way to use a legal degree and kind of zeroed in on baseball as something that was at least worth pursuing. Certainly heard from the beginning how difficult it was to get into the industry and how rare those jobs were, and kind of just always took the mentality of like, well, someone's got to do it. Like if I kind of just work at it and kind of plod along, like there's probably a way to at least make it a possibility. So yeah, during law school, started reaching out to folks in the industry and really just trying to learn as much as I could about different paths within baseball, and spoke to folks who had a legal degree or a business degree or some sort of advanced degree, and learned about what they did and tried to fit that to what I felt like my skill set was. My first internship was in law school, actually was with the San Francisco Giants, which was near where I was at law school. And I grew up in Northern California as a huge Giants fan. So that was a really special experience to go and do an internship in their baseball operations group. So that was the summer of 2013. So did a lot of prep for the draft and trade deadline stuff, and basically just tried to be a sponge and absorb whatever I could in terms of information. And they knew I was at law school, so they kind of helped include me in conversations and things like that had somewhat of a legal bent, though. They were very quick to say, look, if you are interested in, kind of merging baseball, the baseball operations piece and the legal piece, you should really talk to, the lawyers at the commissioner's office. And they connected me with a few folks there to kind of do some additional informational interviews and things like that, and learn a little bit more about what they do. And through those conversations, that's really what I set my sights on at that point, was like, okay, these folks who work in the league's labor relations department, that sort of became to me the perfect blend of those two things, of the actual legal work and baseball work. So was fortunate to then move on to an internship with Major League Baseball and in the LRD as they call it, during my last year of law school, and spent 6 months in New York, working for them. And it was an incredible experience, a very exciting time at the commissioner's office. That's right when Commissioner Manfred was starting his tenure as commissioner, and just a lot of interesting things happening in pro sports at that time. So had an amazing experience there. Went back to law school to finish up, and then started my career at Morgan Lewis in Philadelphia in their labor and employment group. And yeah, spent a few years there as an associate in that group, and wasn't really doing any sports work. It was basically employment litigation and traditional labor work, and was really expecting to kind of put my head down and work as long at the firm as I had to. I really enjoyed Morgan Lewis, really enjoyed the people there, and still do. And was expecting to spend quite a few years there until maybe an opportunity popped up in baseball. But as it turned out, just a few years into it, the Pittsburgh Pirates, posted for a junior attorney role, and one of my old bosses actually at Major League Baseball reached out and said, just saw this, would you have any interest? And of course, my answer was like, absolutely, yes. My dad and his whole family are from Pittsburgh, and he was living in Pittsburgh at the time. So, the thing about working in sports, in baseball specifically, it's like you kind of have to go where the job is, and be open to moving around, and if you want it that bad, you certainly have to be open to different geographical locations. So the fact that it happened to be in Pittsburgh was, it felt very serendipitous, and a team that I certainly grew up following closely just because of my family's connection to Pittsburgh. So yeah, went through that application process and was fortunate enough to get that role, and I was living in Philly at the time, so moved from Philly to Pittsburgh for the Pirates role, and just had an amazing experience in Pittsburgh. It was a two-person legal team at the time when I joined, and was very fortunate to learn from a guy named Brian Stroh, who was their general counsel at the time. Is now one of their assistant GMs, but had a great mentor in Brian, and another great mentor in Frank Coonley, who was their team president at the time, who was also a former attorney. So yeah, just a really amazing experience in Pittsburgh, and a wonderful time living in Pittsburgh as well. During that time, ended up getting engaged to my now wife, who's a Eastern PA native, and was not bashful about making it clear that she wanted to get back to Eastern PA at some point, as much as we love Pittsburgh. So when the Phillies role opened up, it was, again, rare that those roles ever open up, and the fact that the timing worked out relatively well, we were very lucky at that. And so yeah, made the jump over to the Phillies and moved back to the Philadelphia area. And yeah, like you say, I've been with the Phillies for about 4 years now. So that was sort of the short version of the path.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's a great game plan for any of our listeners who are thinking about a career in sports law, right? I mean, you have to really go after it. It has to be, kind of the driving thing. And you have to go where the job is, whether it's a minor league club or major league club or whatever. So
yeah, I always tell folks, like, to spend a lot, like, everybody wants to, work in sports law or entertainment law. Like, they're these sort of broad terms and concepts, but I think when you can, trying to get granular on, like, well, what role do you really want, like, in that field, and what role do you really feel like you are uniquely qualified to serve? I think that is such a more useful way to kind of spend your time and focus. It allows you to really, like, get to the heart of it really quickly and say, like, all right, I've spoken to now these 15 people who do this one job. I think that's the one that really fits me, and, like, dedicate all your time and effort on trying to get that one role. I feel like that's a good way to go about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the other things some of our listeners might be interested in knowing is, and I'm interested as well, I know we've talked about it a little bit from time to time, but As assistant general counsel at the Phillies, what are, some of your daily responsibilities? What are some of the things that people might not realize that you're responsible for? Just walk us through kind of your day to day.
Every day is different. Like that is what makes the job, I'd say, so interesting and dynamic. Is just you have your list of things you're trying to accomplish during the day, but there's inevitably 10 new things that pop up or 10 new questions that pop up during the day. um, I will say I feel lucky that we are a department of generalists still at the Phillies. We have a three-person legal team, and we're all um, generalists, which is not always the case anymore. As teams, legal departments grow, I do think you see a little bit more specialization here and there. You'll have maybe a general counsel, but then other attorneys who are specialists in transactional work or litigation or real estate, and they each kind of have their own worlds that they own. As generalists, though, you really do get you get a taste of everything, and you really, I think, in the legal space, as well as some other roles in the organization, finance, things like that, you really get like a bird's eye view of the whole organization. And as someone who is genuinely interested in the way sports organizations operate, it's just fascinating, to see the interplay between different departments, kind of see ideas as they're born, in one place, and then they kind of grow, and you get to see how, all the different departments have to contribute to realize an idea. So that's definitely one of the best parts about the role. But yeah, I mean, we're obviously there are unique aspects of our job specific to baseball, and league governance, things like that. But beyond that, at a certain level, we operate similar to kind of a mid-sized company's legal department. We touch all the things that a lot of those types of companies would touch. We do a lot of contracts and transactional work. We do a lot of IP work related to the club's marks and things like that. We do a lot of more real estate stuff here and there. And then you add on all the baseball specific stuff, which is obviously the most interesting and fun stuff. But yeah, it really is varied. I mean, we have all of the work we do in Latin America and the Dominican Republic, which is its own other world of legal stuff. So yeah, every day truly is different, and I think being able to transition from working on a big contract to then dealing with a piece of litigation that was just filed, then dealing with some real estate issue, and finally trying to work on registering a new trademark all in one day. It's a very dynamic day, and keeps things very fun.
It's not easy. Like, I just have to be an expert in intellectual property on a daily basis. I mean, you have to be an expert in, real estate, labor and employment,
Yeah.
contract law. So it's for everyone out there that's listening, it's not easy.
To call me
But,
an expert is generous, I'd say, in any of those topics, honestly. And that's kind of the
right.
trade-off I think you get, is like when you are in house, I'd say, yes, obviously you're a lawyer. You're also an operator. You're really like a business operator, and you are, responsible for obviously all of the legal issues. But you have to know when to get help from an expert, from an
Yeah.
actual expert, and when
Right.
an issue is something you haven't tackled before, or something that's significant enough where you need another set of eyes on things. So that's certainly part of the job as well, and part of the trick is your client is the organization, and you just have to serve the organization as best you can. And if that means seeking outside help, you certainly have to be prepared to do that. But yeah, I think too, we have a really great legal team here at the Phillies, with really experienced lawyers, and who've all had a lot of experience in this industry for a while. So it's great to be able to bounce ideas off each other and just be a really collaborative department, because between the three of us, I feel like we're able to arrive at the right conclusions, more often than not, which is great.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you about something that interested me from the outside, which is your jersey partnership that
Mm.
was a first for the Phillies this year, leaving only about 5 clubs in Major League Baseball that don't have jersey sponsors. You partnered with Independence Blue Cross. For anyone who's out there listening who isn't from the greater Philadelphia or Delaware Valley area, probably the largest healthcare provider in our region, and a partner of the Phillies in other contexts as well, healthcare provider partner, and maybe some other contexts. And so you chose to go with them as your jersey sponsor based on that longstanding relationship. I wanted to ask you about your work in sponsorships specifically. What have some of those deals, the more interesting deals that you've worked on since you've been at the Phillies, looked like, and how has that process gone for you?
Yeah, I love the sponsorship work, to be honest. I tell our group this as well, but it's I feel like it's one of the most uh, you know quickly evolving parts of professional sports. It's I think just by its very nature, like uh, people are trying to come up with the next big invention in the world of sponsorships all the time, and for that reason I feel like you have a lot of really creative thinkers who end up finding their way into that part of sports. People, you can go so many different directions in pro sports, but the folks who end up in sponsorships I feel like are just some of the most creative thinkers. And I'm fortunate, at the Pirates as well as the Phillies, really collaborative people as well. Like, I think legal and sponsorship work really well together. I think because we know we both kind of need each other. We complete different parts of the puzzle, and I really enjoy, contributing where appropriate to some of that creative thinking, and trying to come up with solutions to problems that may exist as it relates to exclusivities or league rules and things like that. Like there's a lot of rules with which we need to operate within, and that's part of the fun, is figuring out how to do that and how to get the sponsor what they're looking for, and come up with a deal that works for everyone. IBX is a great example just of, I'd say, one of the Phillies' greatest assets is just the number of long-standing, trusted sponsors that we've had, for decades and decades and decades. And when you have that level of trust with sponsors, it really makes, you know, all the work easier, but especially the legal work. I mean, the process of that deal, was you think about a deal that size and you can think like, oh, that must have been, challenging and painful, and it really wasn't any of those things because of that level of trust that we had. And of course, yeah, your two counterparties, like you're both looking to get certain things, but it doesn't need to be this drag down fight with a bunch of animosity. Like it was a great example of that, and appreciated that that's where we ended up with our patch partner. And yeah, I think, like I said, we have a lot of partners that kind of fall into that category of just you're able to operate knowing that you both have each other's best interests in mind. And again, like I think our sponsorship team is among the best in terms of being flexible and trying to get our partners, whatever they're looking for. Like if they come and say, hey, this one asset really isn't moving the needle for us, or it's not doing the trick. Like, all right, well, let's see what we can do to make it work better, or let's see what we can do to, shift into something that's going to have a bigger impact. So yeah, and like I said, it just I'm always I feel like once you have worked in the sponsorship space too, you're much more aware at stadiums and during games of like the little things that sponsorship teams are doing to kind of even if it's subconsciously just sort of make that little imprint in your head. Like the example I always like to use is at the Sixers games they do. I know you've been to plenty of Sixers games, like the Chick-fil-A promotion they do with missed free throws. And see, and I don't know if the Sixers came up with that originally, or if that was from somewhere else originally, but I was at a game one time and just saw that for the first time. I was like, that's brilliant. That really is like brilliant to take this like this mundane part of a basketball game, that like it's a second free throw. Like how many times that happened in a game? It's like a non-marketed part of a game, and to turn it into this thing where the fans are just going crazy, and it's like it's so memorable. It's not just like advertising straight at someone. It like involves the crowd in something that they're going to remember. I just thought that was like such an elegant example of a creative sponsorship asset. So I love watching games or being at ballparks and just think like, oh, that was pretty clever, like that was well done, or and I'm sure that's part of it is kind of borrowing from those who do it well. And but I think our sponsorship group does a really nice job of making our stuff very Philly based too. Like it's Philly sports is its own animal, and I think we do a good job of kind of tailoring our sponsorships to fit the personality of our city.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I can tell you, I've gotten a lot of free Chick-fil-A nuggets
Yes.
out of my time being a Sixers season ticket holder. But
Yep.
you mentioned trust in agreements, and I think that's important. That's something that we talk to clients a lot about. That if there isn't some base level of trust, that you can't really do an agreement, even if it's a settlement agreement in litigation.
Mm,
There has to be some level of trust, and the more trust there is, I think the easier it is, for you to look past those provisions where it's like, well, what would happen in this, scenario, this off the wall scenario? Those become
yeah.
less and less.
Yeah.
Um, so
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. That's right. No, and I think too, like it's or if you don't have that trust, you just kind of go into it knowing you're a little more at risk here. Like
yeah,
this could go south, and I'm not 100% confident that if it does, there will be a quick or reasonable resolution. That's the thing about the trust is it's like, all right, yeah, you can't prepare for every possible scenario, but if something goes wrong, you can kind of sleep better knowing like, all right, we're going to figure it out together, and no one's going to try to bury the other one. It's like
right.
we have a mutual interest here in kind of making things go well, and preserving the relationship. So yeah, the longer I'm in the industry, and baseball is it's a small industry, like it really is all about relationships. Like if you can kind of build a reputation as someone who cares about doing the right thing, and preserving those relationships, I feel like that pays dividends all the time.
Yeah. Well, let me transition into asking you about legal issues in general. Are there any over the course of your career, not just with the Phillies, but a particularly tough legal issue that you faced and overcame, or even a non-legal issue, something in your career that was, kind of an inflection point for you?
The legal issues that stick out to me the most, uh, I think, are just the biggest deals we've worked on. And I think those deals just naturally like encompass 900 different legal issues. Like when you're working through a 100-page RSN deal or naming rights agreement, you're forced to just address so many different issues within those deals. And like when I think back on the biggest um, I don't know, accomplishment's not the right word, but the things after completing that you feel the best about, those are probably the big ones that stick out, are the biggest deals in kind of a sports organization. TV rights deal, naming rights deal. You mentioned the jersey patch deal. Feeling a sense of accomplishment of working through all the different questions and issues that come up with those really big deals, and feeling like you arrived at a place where both you and the partner are really happy. Um, Inflection points, though, I mean, this is non-legal. I like another thing I feel a lot of pride toward at the Pirates. This was back in I guess pre-COVID, so maybe 2018 or something like that. 2019 was really helping start some of their more focused like DE&I programming. This was pre George Floyd, so kind of before everything blew up in that space. We were able to launch a like a diversity recruiting program where we would invite students from the local colleges and universities, to the ballpark to kind of learn about different careers in baseball. Yeah, we got a few of those under our belt before I moved to the Phillies, but and it's still going on in Pittsburgh. And that's like every time I see, an article about it in the Pittsburgh newspapers or read about how the event's grown, I really do feel like a great sense of pride in that event, and starting it, and the fact that it's continuing to operate today. And that's, that's something that's been important to me since going back to college. My undergraduate degree was in African American studies and was pretty active in, the African American Law Journal and law school. So to kind of see that continue on and get to sort of help the Pirates start some of that was really impactful. And I know there's lots of changes in that space these days, but I'm heartened to see, a lot of that work still continuing today and in different ways, perhaps. But that's definitely one of the things I feel the most sense of pride about.
Yeah, that's an amazing accomplishment, and you should feel really proud of that.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to transition now into some of the easy part of the questioning. Right, we got through the hard part. Um, but so I wanted to ask you. We like to talk about video games on the podcast. I wanted to ask you. I know you're a gamer because we've had those conversations in the past. What are some of your favorite? Well, what are you playing right now? I know you have small children, and it's tough to
Yeah.
to find time to do that. But if you're playing anything right now besides MLB The Show,
Yeah.
um, um, and what are some of your favorite video games or systems of all time?
Yeah, I should be honest. To call myself a gamer is definitely too generous. I've never been someone who's been good at video games. I enjoy playing them, but like, my cousins, who kind of introduced me to games when I was a kid, and friends in school, they're all so good at video games. Any of those games where you actually had to be like dexterous and like think quickly and like beat bosses, and I was terrible at all those games. Like I've always been much more of the like passive gamer who just like enjoys some of my favorite games are like open world games where you can just like wander around and get lost and like there's no real objective or direction. Those are probably, over time have been my favorites. As a kid though, I mean, my first system was the PS1. I was probably like in, fifth or sixth grade when I got that. And yes, as you mentioned, MLB The Show. Like I definitely played a lot of sports games, a lot of like, NFL Game Day '98 and those sorts of like old sports games. And as going through middle school, that was N64's heyday. So spent a lot of time playing GoldenEye and Zelda
Yeah.
and stuff like that. But again, like was never the best gamer in the room. If we were like at a party with friends playing games, I was never that good. But yeah, nowadays, as you mentioned, unfortunately don't get enough time to play. One of my favorite games recently was Red Dead Redemption 2, which is like that, one set in the West. I grew up in like a rural town in Northern California that like looks like a lot of the settings in Red Dead 2. So
Right.
one of my favorite things to do is still just like put that on and just wander around again with no objective, but just like enjoy the open world elements and put on some music in the background and just kind of zone out for a little while. That's probably
Yeah.
my favorite way to play games right now.
You mentioned music. I wanted to ask you about you. I know you're in a band. You play bass guitar, and you've been getting some gigs around the Philadelphia area recently.
Yes.
So tell me, just how did that after moving here? How did you find your bandmates, and how did that come together?
Yeah, I played music a lot as a younger person, through high school and college and law school a bit out in California. But yeah, had not played in a band for a long, long time. And I guess the end of last year was basically just like, all right, enough's enough. Like I want to kind of like, picking up a sport again or something. You kind of just want to see if you still got it, like playing pickup basketball or something. You want to see if you can
Yeah.
still like run with people. So yeah, I ended up connecting with a group of musicians on Craigslist, believe it or not, old school, like responding to a Craigslist post. And yeah, we practice, when we can, like again with kids, it's time is limited, but yeah, mostly just wanted to see if I still had the chops and we're not bad. Yeah, we have a couple gigs under our belt and we'll see where it goes. But for the more than anything, it's just fun playing music with people. Like it
Yeah.
really is. It's like I said, akin to kind of like pick up sports. It's like you're not looking to, go out and go pro or anything like that, but you just get such a sense of, I don't know, like talking about things like flow state and stuff like that. It's like playing music for me is that. Like if I can
Yeah.
just be in that state as much as possible, that's what I would like to be doing. So and I think too, when when you get out there and start playing shows again, you just meet more musicians, you get more opportunities to play. Like I think that's the most fun part, and continuing to just see live music whenever I can.
Right.
It's all part of the scratches the same itch. So
Yeah.
happy to be able to do that again a little bit.
Yeah, that's something I love doing as well. Try to get to, 10 or more shows every year, see
Hmm.
live music, especially in small venues.
Yeah.
So, well, last question for you.
Yeah.
What's on tap for you through the end of 2025 in your role, and into 2026? Where are things headed for you over the next 12 months?
Yeah, we got well, hopefully an exciting end to the 25 season for the Phillies. We'll
Yeah,
see.
of course.
Yes, that's what's on everyone's mind at the moment. But yeah, I mean, 26 is going to be a huge year for the Phillies specifically. We're hosting the All-Star game next summer here in Philadelphia. And in addition to that, the city has a million things going on next year with the World Cup coming to town, with the 250th anniversary. So we're going to be very busy preparing for all that, but especially for All Star. That's we've been preparing for that already for over a year, and the game's a year away. So it is kind of remarkable just to reflect on even how much work has already gone into it, and then how much obviously more is still to come. But I'm really excited about that. That's one of those things that is really is a once in a lifetime opportunity, and a chance to, make a really incredible moment for the Phillies organization, for the city. So that's probably what I'm looking forward to the most, and just to see, all the fruits of our labor, on those few days next July, is going to be really special, and I have no doubt that the city's going to show up and really make it a memorable event. I feel like Philadelphia sports is definitely having a moment right now between all the teams, and just the culture here. I mean, I feel like we're really getting a lot of positive attention, well earned, for just the level of passion that our fans have. And I think next summer is going to be another way to display that. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know how many times I watched the Schwarber home run video from the other night, and the
Yeah,
crowd reaction to a random game in the middle of August. It
yeah.
felt like a playoff game. So,
Yeah, it's unreal. I mean, it really, like, it really is a special, feel very fortunate to be like a small part of it, because
yeah,
especially just thinking, 15, 20, 25 years from now, like, we're going to reflect on these games and these moments, like, not to get nostalgic already, but it's true. I mean, they're
yeah,
just like, and every time they keep happening, you're just trying to, like, enjoy the moment and just think about how special it is. Because exactly as you said, like a Tuesday night in August, it's just an amazing scene here, and there's so many people in the ballpark just having an amazing time. Like, that's what's fun, is just to see all of the individual interactions with families, and kids and their parents and friends. It's just, there these, you're helping create these memories that will last a lifetime for people. And yeah, I'm really fortunate to be here with this organization at a time that so many special things are happening.
yeah, for sure. Well, that's all the time that we have for today. I want to say let's go Phillies, and thank you to Frankie Garland, Assistant General Counsel. Thanks for coming on.
Happy to do it. Thanks, Darius.
If you have any questions about any of the issues that we raised on the podcast today, you can drop them into the comments, and we'll do our best to answer them without providing any real legal advice, of course. Until next time, this is Darius Gambino with Frankie Garland from the Philadelphia Phillies. We'll see you next time on Lawyers with Game. This is Darius Gambino, host of Lawyers with Game. If you're enjoying these videos, please like and subscribe. And if you want more video game content, check out some of our linked videos.